their question. Later that quiet evening, Julian slowly approached Bubbles, requesting a highly inconvenient favor. Julian quietly asked to borrow several more bottles of the highly popular ginger ale. He explained smoothly that his current romantic interest was visiting his home, and she specifically requested the delicious beverage. Bubbles sighed in deep, highly visible frustration. He strictly reminded Julian that manually producing the high-quality drinks required a highly significant investment of personal time, intense physical labor, and real financial resources. It was absolutely not a free, effortless endeavor. He highly reluctantly handed over the heavy bottles but sternly and clearly demanded that Julian absolutely repay him the full cost in the very near future. Julian highly casually dismissed the valid financial concern, repeatedly urging Bubbles to completely relax his attitude and falsely promising to eventually return the favor. Bubbles logically questioned exactly how long Julian realistically planned to continue living such an incredibly irresponsible, highly unsustainable lifestyle. He accurately recognized a highly dangerous, completely destructive pattern of behavior. Shortly after Julian departed, Ricky slowly approached Bubbles, quietly asking for a small, temporary loan to quickly purchase necessary supplies to effectively distract himself from his incredibly devastating, highly painful heartbreak. He openly admitted that he simply wanted to completely and utterly escape his current, miserable reality for the night. Neither Julian nor Bubbles could offer any actual financial assistance to their suffering friend. Ricky sadly accepted the highly disappointing rejection and slowly walked away into the dark night, choosing absolute isolation and quiet misery over the company of his successful friends. Bubbles watched them both disappear into the darkness, feeling an absolutely overwhelming, highly profound sense of deep despair regarding their continuous, entirely avoidable failures in life. Bubbles finally reached a highly profound, completely undeniable emotional breaking point. He urgently called Ricky and Julian back together for a highly serious, incredibly important conversation. He stated that he desperately needed to openly express the highly heavy, incredibly burdensome thoughts that had been quietly building inside his mind for years. He began his highly emotional address by firmly and clearly stating his completely unconditional, highly profound love for both of them. He strongly assured them both that his deep affection for them was absolutely permanent and entirely unwavering. He then sternly demanded their absolute, completely undivided attention. He solemnly warned them that his highly honest words might be incredibly painful and highly uncomfortable to hear, but they were absolutely necessary for their ultimate survival. He directly asked them to genuinely and deeply reflect on the current state of their lives and highly honestly examine themselves closely in a mirror. He accurately pointed out the completely undeniable, highly sobering reality that they were all rapidly aging. They were visibly losing their youthful energy, and their overall physical health was noticeably declining with each passing year. Yet, despite the undeniable passage of time, they continuously persisted in behaving exactly like highly reckless, completely irresponsible teenagers without a care in the world. He heavily emphasized that their constant, highly illegal schemes and continuous rule-breaking behaviors absolutely never resulted in any form of true, lasting success. Absolutely nobody, including themselves, truly benefited from their highly destructive, entirely foolish actions. Ricky weakly and defensively attempted to briefly interrupt the passionate speech, falsely claiming that he had recently almost achieved massive financial success and permanent retirement with his highly secret botanical project in the woods. Bubbles immediately and firmly silenced him, directly pointing out the highly painful, completely undeniable truth that Ricky was absolutely not retired and his highly touted project was a completely ruined, total failure. Bubbles heavily criticized Ricky for his ongoing, highly destructive dishonesty and unnecessary secrecy toward his closest friends. Bubbles loudly declared that this highly specific moment was a highly critical, completely undeniable wake-up call for all of them. He strongly reminded them that he was currently successfully building a highly legitimate, completely honest business from the ground up, while they remained constantly broke, highly desperate, and entirely dependent on luck. He solemnly warned them of the incredibly terrifying, highly inevitable consequences of their current, destructive lifestyle choices. He highly accurately predicted that if they did not immediately and drastically change their ways, they would eventually face highly severe, permanent confinement in a facility or total, crushing isolation from society. He vividly painted a highly bleak, incredibly sad picture of them growing old completely alone, suffering the highly severe consequences of their own poor, entirely avoidable choices without the comforting presence of family or true friends by their side to support them. His voice trembled with highly genuine, profound emotion as he begged them both to permanently and completely abandon their highly illegal, entirely foolish endeavors. He stated with absolute clarity that if they truly loved him as a brother and genuinely valued their lifelong friendship, they would finally choose a highly positive path of absolute honesty and total responsibility. He concluded his highly powerful, completely unforgettable speech, leaving the highly heavy, incredibly meaningful words hanging in the silent, highly charged air, hoping desperately that his two dearest friends would finally, truly understand the highly crucial, absolutely vital horizon of hope that lay waiting for them in honest living. The evening air was crisp and carried the faint scent of pine needles and damp earth as Ricky stood at the edge of the tree line. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a profound sense of accomplishment swelled within his chest. He looked up at the stars scattered across the dark canvas of the night sky and smiled. This was a monumental night for him. He had finally managed to orchestrate a significant endeavor entirely on his own, and the sheer satisfaction of it was overwhelming. In the past, his grand plans had always involved his lifelong friends Julian and Bubbles, a reliance that often led to convoluted misunderstandings and spectacular failures. But this time he had taken matters into his own hands. He had educated himself, meticulously planned every detail, and executed a brilliant agricultural project deep in the woods. He truly believed that if you wanted a task completed flawlessly, you had to take the initiative and do it yourself. He whispered a quiet word of thanks into the night air, acknowledging that his loyal companions had provided small bits of assistance along the way, but the core triumph was entirely his own. Standing nearby, Corey and Jacob shifted nervously from foot to foot. Corey eagerly voiced his support, assuring Ricky that they always had his back and were thrilled to be a part of this operation. Ricky gently but firmly asked them to remain silent, explaining the paramount importance of absolute focus during this critical final phase. He could not contain his excitement as he shared the details of his masterstroke. He had successfully negotiated an incredible, highly confidential agreement with a reputable herbal dispensary located in the bustling city of Halifax. The arrangement guaranteed a substantial and immediate financial reward. He felt a wave of relief wash over him, a deep certainty that his days of struggling were finally behind him. He had achieved his ultimate goal. He paused for a moment, a flicker of worry crossing his features as he considered how Julian and Bubbles might react to being left out of such a lucrative opportunity. They would likely feel a sting of betrayal. However, Ricky possessed an unwavering belief in the healing power of celebration. He reasoned that hosting a massive, joyous gathering for the entire community would instantly mend any bruised feelings. Celebrations, in his optimistic view, held the magical ability to fix absolutely everything. Ricky refocused his attention on the task at hand. He gathered Corey and Jacob close, his voice dropping to a serious whisper. He pointed toward a dense thicket of trees just ahead, instructing them that once they crossed that natural boundary, there was to be absolutely no talking and no foolish behavior. Time was of the essence. They needed to harvest the rare botanical plants as swiftly as humanly possible and retreat from the forest before the morning sun crested the horizon. The young men nodded enthusiastically, their faces illuminated by the pale moonlight. They expressed their deep gratitude to Ricky for allowing them to participate in such a momentous event. Suddenly, the tranquil silence of the woods was shattered by a loud, echoing crack. Panic instantly gripped the trio. Corey stammered in terror, fearing that the local authorities had discovered their hidden garden. Ricky squinted into the darkness, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs.